Welcome to Keep What You Earn, your judgment and jargon-free zone for entrepreneurs of all levels. Get ready to learn how to scale your business, save money in taxes, and create a business that grows your wealth. If it feels like the financial side of business is like eating your vegetables, well, then think of this podcast as the ranch dressing to make the process a little more enjoyable. My name is Shannon Weinstein. I'm a CPA and business owner on a mission to simplify money and empower others through knowledge. I hope this episode inspires you to take action, but remember that the information we share is for educational purposes only and is not individual tax advice. Now that we got that out of the way, let's start the show. One of the fun parts about doing this podcast is I get to share with you some of the insights on what we do with our clients. I'm pretty much an open book in terms of if you have questions on what our services look like and what we do, I'm happy to share that. There's really no trade secrets, to quote Elizabeth Holmes, right? There's no trade secrets over here. And one of the fun aspects of what we do is we break down, because, I have to create a framework. I have to create a system on everything. So when we really dove into our CFO onboarding, we broke down all of the elements of what we need to do with a client to really get to know their business into a series of 4 to 5 phone calls. And what we do in each of these calls is we specifically focus on one area of their business and we go deep. Now, we tend to focus first on income, as most people do. We kind of just go down the P&L. And what I want to talk about in today's episode is one of our calls that we do is a deep dive into income. And I want to go through what we talk about on those calls and what we focus on so that you could actually do a little bit of DIY. If you're not necessarily looking for a CFO yet, but you want to know what we do and what the value is that we bring, this is an example of it. So when we do a income session, we go through with the client and ask a few simple questions. And we try to figure out how to maximize income. So we're always looking at, we're kind of doing a walkthrough. This is my audit brain. So when I was in my career, I used to most of my career was interviewing people in business, interviewing operations managers, interviewing controllers and CFOs, and asking them how they do their processes. So then what happens, and looking for controls, looking for breakdowns, looking for ways to improve the process. Most of my career was spent in process improvement consulting in the financial operations of companies. So this is my bread and butter. This is why I love doing what I do, because that is my skill set and my background. Believe it or not, my background isn't in preparing tax returns. It is in, strategy and consulting. So when we look at the income, we go through a series of questions because that's how my brain works is let's just keep asking interview questions and pull it out of the client. Because if I ask you, tell me about your income, there's so many different ways to interpret that. We have to ask specific questions. So here's some of the questions that we ask clients. And I'm not verbatim reading it off of our checklist sheet. I wanted to just go off the cuff and go through, this is what we're looking for, and find different ways to phrase it that maybe will resonate with you. So how do we maximize income, right, is our focus. So the first thing I ask is go through your offers with me. We're going to run down your offers. What do you sell? And are they recurring revenue sources? Are they one time? How much do you need to market these different offers in order to sell them, right? So how kind of automated is this income? So we look at, what are the revenue sources and how often does that come in? What's recurring versus what's one time? And if there's launch cycles, for example, how many times do you launch a year, et cetera, et cetera. And then we go into price point. So what's the price point per purchase? Okay. So if it's a low ticket item and we're playing with volume, right? Is that what the focus is? Or are we focused on high ticket and, high value? And what's the duration of how these offers work? So someone buys something from you. This is especially true with my online coaches. If something is purchased from you, does that mean that now you're delivering a service over 3 to 6 months, and you're not collecting more revenue? Or is this like they're collecting it monthly? What are your payment plans? What are your cash conversion cycles? Meaning when are you actually realizing cash in the bank over the course of the offer? So we love to look at that and kind of figure out the rhythm of when cash comes in. And that's going to be crucial when we talk about cash flow, which we'll discuss in a whole nother episode. That's actually one of the dedicated calls is cash flow. But when we're looking at income, say, how does money come in? And how are you collecting it, right? So are you invoicing out Is it like a point of sale system? How can people buy from you is another big aspect. So do you have a point of sale system, which we call a POS, which could mean something else? But a POS system is crucial. If you think about like when you go to a coffee shop, I used to go to this coffee shop all the time when I was at work, and they had this little kiosk thing, like the iPad on the stand, you know what I'm talking about, where they flip it around to you and you basically do all the work. They type in what you want and you can like sign or you can give a tip and all that stuff. That's a POS system. So like Toast is one of them. Dubsado might be yours, or Kajabi has their own POS system. It's wherever your customers can check out. So wherever they can actually make the purchase and enact the transaction. That's your kind of your point of sale system. So for your point of sale system, how does it work? And how do you get paid, right? How do people buy? How do you get paid? And then alongside of that, now people can confuse these two things. You have a point of sale system where people buy, like that's like the cart, okay? The cart. Then you have a payment processor. They're not the same thing. They may be integrated, but they are not the same thing. The POS is the cart. The payment processor is the register. Does that make sense? Right? Like the checkout line to the register. So the cart gets you to the register, and then that's where you pay. So when you cash out or when you cash in a payment from a customer, how are you getting that money? What's it going through? Is it going through Stripe, through Square, through PayPal, through Venmo? Hope not. But where's it going through where you're getting paid? And is it cash? Is it credit card? Is it ACH? What type of payment are you receiving from customers? And then that also tells us, by the way, that the subtlety underneath all that when we ask you, how do you get paid, is also so we know if you're going to be getting 1099s. Are you going to get 1099 NECs from customers who pay you through ACH? Are you going to get them through Zelle? And are you going to get 1099Ks if you get collections through PayPal or Square or Stripe or some of those processors? So we like to know and set the expectation of, okay, how many 1099s are we going to get for this business? And then what we look at after we look at what do you sell? How do you sell it? How do you get paid? How do people buy, right? The next phase is then how do you record it in your business? So how do you record that income? And that could just be the bookkeeping, right? If you're using QuickBooks Online, it could be as simple as, well, I go into the bank feed, I classify the income, and we're done. But we also ask the client every time. And if you haven't done this, by the way, if there's anything you take away from today, if you're doing all this yourself and you have a good grip on all these questions, what you want to look at where most entrepreneurs are kind of, I don't say lacking, but where we have room for improvement is in the bookkeeping. So what you may not realize in QuickBooks Online, if you're doing this yourself or you're doing this with a bookkeeper, what you may not realize is at certain levels of subscription, meaning most of them in QuickBooks Online, you can go in and create what are called income centers to those of us in the industry. We call them income centers. QuickBooks doesn't use this term, but if you talk to an accountant or a bookkeeper, they'll know what you mean. And these are part of your chart of accounts. So your chart of accounts, now just to use some lingo for you, your chart of accounts, when you see this term in your QuickBooks, your chart of accounts is your bookshelf and the labels of the books on it, the binders, right? So when you're categorizing your transactions, your quote unquote chart of accounts is the menu from which you can select the category. So you're designing your menu, you're designing that dropdown. You have the ability to customize this at most levels of subscription in QuickBooks. So you can customize these accounts. Now, and when I say accounts, I don't mean bank accounts. I mean accounts like rent expense, legal and professional services, other expenses, office expenses. These are all accounts actually in QuickBooks. So when you're customizing your accounts, what I'm getting at is you can choose accounts for your income. So with many of our clients, we have split out sales, right? Everything goes into sales by default if you pick up a QuickBooks account, right? If you pick up a QuickBooks subscription. So when you get in there, you're going to put everything in sales because you don't know what else is available. But here's the thing. You can actually create you can create a hierarchy. B, you can also create more accounts. Within reason, don't go overkill because then it's too much work. But you can do a nice balance of the insights that you want. So when you go into your QuickBooks, you can add in an account for, let's just use coaching again as an example, one-on-one coaching income, group coaching income, online course sales, right? when we talk about the offers that you have, so going back to our first question for the client, what are your offers? We're also thinking we're going to make these into income centers. So we're going to put them into their QuickBooks so that they can see the sales over time. They can see the trend of how well each offer is doing over time. And we can even analyze profitability by offer by having an income account and a cost account that are aligned and both relate to that offer. So I can have one-on-one coaching income, one-on-one coaching costs, digital course income, digital course costs. And you can see month over month and, through other different dimensions, you can see how profitable is this offer. That's huge. That is absolutely huge for insights. Now, I'm just making you aware you have this capability. So if you're doing this on your own, you can do this. But if you're looking for help doing these types of things, that's what we're here for. And most accountants would be able to help you with that. And as you're growing your business, these are the types of things, these are the detailed level questions that we go through. If you're wondering, hey, Shan, what's the difference between like a bookkeeper and a CFO and what do I need right now? It's a function of how well and how completely you can answer all these questions we've talked about in today's episode. How people buy, what are your processes, what's your structure, what's your system, and how good of a grip you have on how well each of those things is working. Because that's the first thing we do when we meet a new client is we want to go into an income deep dive and we want to go through all of these different elements and identify areas of opportunity, areas where we might be missing out on revenue or where we can convert more recurring revenue and find money, find dollars that the client didn't know they might be leaving on the table. So that is really the key focus. So it's not just learning their processes. It feels like we're almost auditing them. It feels like we're digging deep and doing a walkthrough. But in reality, what we're doing is asking questions to identify opportunity. And it's a fast track to getting to those opportunities is really getting into the weeds and the details of how things work. And it's kind of fun for us. So if you're interested in exploring CFO services, do not hesitate. Shoot me a text message using the link below in the show notes, or feel free to shoot me a DM on Instagram. My handle is @ShannonK.Weinstein. I would love to work with your businesses on doing a deeper dive into how we can maximize your income without really changing a whole lot or expanding offers or creating complexity. Sometimes it's right under your nose and all you need is that other set of eyes to see it. So if you enjoyed today's episode, please, please, please leave a rating or review. Shout me out on social media with a screenshot of this episode so I can share it. And I'll look forward to the next episode with you.